put it down to 3% to give us a little more money there. Next one is our good news. This is our sales tax. We're coming in, between both of them, the original 1% and the additional, we're coming in $378,000 over where we were in 2020 at this time, and $449,000 over 2019. So this is our good news. The next is our franchise fees. We're about $67,000 over 2020 and just $5,000 over 2019. But this always stays pretty close to $1.6 million. 2020 went down because of the pandemic. So I'm glad we're right back where we should be. Right now we're at 73% of that line item. And the next one is the one that's just tanked. This is our interest on idle funds. You see in 19, we ended the year with $591,000. This year we've earned $3,000 so far. So this is our worst one. We're going to lose probably $400,000 in this line item alone. So having that sales tax come in higher really helps us out. Overall, our general fund expenditures, we're at 71% of the budget. Usually this time of the year it's 75% by the end of September. So we're doing good there. This one gives you a little bit better look at the general fund. You can see our revenue total is coming in at 84%. As I said, expenditures 71%. Most of the line items are doing very well. On a normal year, we end the year with about 98% in revenue and 93% in expenditures. But I don't know what we might do this year. Last year was so weird, and the expenditures are higher this year, so it's I'm not predicting much this year. Another revenue stream that's coming in very well is our fuel sales. People are flying again. We are $265,000 over this time last year and $103,000 over 2019. Anytime we're over 2019, that's what I kind of look at because last year was such a funny year. Our leases were about $18,000 higher than last year and $70,000 over 2019.
And if I may, Donna, Aviation Commission met last evening. Commissioner Kane and I and City Attorney all sit on that board. And one of the things they reported on specific to fuel sales is we have several industries. I mean, we have multiple industries out at the airport. As you know, we have between 700-900 employees out there, not the cities, but private employees. And one of the contractors out there has been doing some major repairs and test flights on several different private sector jets. And so that has really helped with our fuel sales. So we're grateful for our private sector partners out there.
So Don, is the 2019 the whole year actual and the 2021 is year to date?
No, this is all September 30th.
It's all
September
year
30th, 2019.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
The next one is our airport expenditures. Overall, we're at 76%. And you'll remember when you sell more fuel, you have to buy more fuel. So that's why we're up a little bit on that. The next sheet shows that we're about 90% of our commodities line item, and that's where the fuel buying the fuel comes in at. So we need to watch that close, make sure we don't go over budget. We did save some money when we refunded in 2020. So some of the debt service, we've saved some money, about $30,000 a year for the airport. So that helps. All the debt, most of our bond payments come due in September. So we will not take any more transfers from airport or wastewater. So they always look really bad about now because all the debt services came out for the whole year. So they're at 100% for that. So we kind of have to remember that. Next is wastewater revenue. Right now we're at 74% of budget. We are up from last year, $31,000, but we're down about $58,000 from 2019. The plant upgrade fee is up about $12,000 from last year, and it's down about $4,900 from 2019. So these are pretty close to where they're supposed to be. The wastewater fund expenditures, you notice there's quite a gap in what our actual was for this year as compared to last year, there's about $400,000. So I thought, what in the world is going on? I went and looked at this. We have about $393,000 more debt payments that we've made this year. We added Sand Creek sewer, the old main sewer, and the dam. All those payments are added on here. So we're going to be up this high, and like I said, 100% of that's come out by the end of September. So it really looks like we're spending a lot more, but it's all debt service. And these payments are going to stay high for about 5 more years. Then they'll go back down under $1 million. We're paying about $1.4 million in debt service from the sewer annually. But you can see overall our revenues at 73% and our expenditures are at 72%. Water revenue, we're at 74% of our budget. We're up about $73,000 from 2020 and $182,000 from 2019. So people are watering their lawns or they're using water. Our expenditures were down from last year about $113,000. We're at 64% of the budget, so that is good. And you can see the whole thing here.
Were there projects that we weren't able to do? Is that why those expenditures are down? Or?
I'm not for sure about that.
Okay. We'll
I'll have
defer
to look into that and tell you.
Thank you.
It's about 100,000. It's not a lot that we're down, but it is better than being
Significant.
above. The sanitation revenue, we're at 75% of the budget. We're up about $33,000 from last year and $78,000 from 2019. You remember in 2020, we did raise our container rentals up to that. We were not losing money on them.
And that was for commercial roll-offs.
And we also went up $1 in 2020 to help pay for the recycle inspector. Our expenditures, we're at 71% of budget. We're about $169,000 over our 2020 expenditures and $281,000 over 2019. Right now, we're, because we're not recycling so much, we are getting more trash. We're about 138 tons more trash than we were last year. 11 more tons for dumpsters, 58. We're down 58 tons in recycling. The recycling is the one that cost us $20 a ton. Trash costs us $36 until next year, April. And then those recycle per ton, it could go up to $160. And as far as the numbers, in May of 2020, we had about, when we went to this new program and kind of got smoothed out, we had about 2,900 people recycling. In August of 2020, it went down to 2,600. And as of right now, today, we have 1,800. So it's going down, it's going down. This is something you're going to have to look at whether we continue or not, especially if the prices come back so high. Just something to think about.
And please recall that that is a contracted service. So although City of Newton employees pick up the recycling, it goes to Harvey County to the transfer station. And Harvey County is contracted to a private hauler, Waste Connections. They set the price per ton for both recycling and for trash. We dump it on the floor, so to speak. It's a big scale. And they weigh it and look through it for anything that's a non-recyclable item. And they determine what is recyclable or not. Just because it has the recycling emblem on it does not mean that they're accepting it. If it is an item that is recyclable, but they're not accepting, or it's actual trash, like, we see sometimes people just get in the wrong bin or whatever, but sometimes it's legitimate, like, Walmart bags or, garden hoses. I know everyone means the best, but the private hauler considers that contamination. And if we have a certain percentage of contamination in any given load, the city is fined for that truck, and that truck is banned from recycling for 30 days. So even if we pick up the recycling every week, we are not allowed to recycle it. It just gets taken straight to the dump, which is why we instituted the inspector. We're trying to keep the contamination of the loads down. So unfortunately, all of those things are things that are out of our control.
We've had a good report on how many violations have been caught by that inspector.
Yes.
It's been a while since we've had the report on how many
Yes.
loads have been rejected.
I will check with Ms. Loomis, the Public Works Director, and get you an updated number in the weekly report this Friday. But that's, again, it's a very, unfortunately, complicated system that is something out of our control, so we tried the best to help maintain the actual service while still being able to not have those trucks fined and those things just taken to the trash instead of recycled.
And if you get bounced off of recycling, you can still take the stuff directly to the transfer station yourself.
You may, yes, sir, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the whole picture. You can see we're at 75% of our revenue and 71% of our expenditures. The next one is our bright spot. It's the golf course revenue. Right now, we're at 107% of budget. I like that. We're up 213,000 from 2020 and 229,000 from 2019.
That's been one of the silver linings of the pandemic, as golf has definitely had a resurgence, Mr. Toohey, yes.
Our expenses are at 82% of budget, but you'll remember most of their stuff is during the warm months. They're going to have a different percentage than we do.
And we were very fortunate that some of the tournaments and bigger events that we host for private sector partners that did not come last year did come back this year. And so
Yeah.
that means we have to buy more supplies, things for the pro shops, food, and those kind of things. But again, that means more revenue for us coming in as we resell those items.
So overall, you can see what we're doing. We've got money in the bank, which is great. And I know Chris is wanting to do some things out there with that and make it look even better. The last one we're talking about today is the Meridian Center. And unfortunately, the hospitality industry is still struggling right now. We're having lots of large events postponed or canceled. We still have several small, but it's very hard to get people to come out. And you can't blame them right now. We're at 36% of our revenue budget. Revenue is down 62,000 from last year and 128,000 from 2019. And Michael and his staff are doing a great job of keeping the expenses down. They're at 41% of budget, but you do have to keep staff there, so when somebody wants to come in, you have them. He does have good ideas for temporary workers. He goes through a temporary service, so we don't have to have those people full-time. He also has a bartender service, so we don't have to have that. So he's done everything smart as he can during this time. And you can see the ending cash balance is getting lower. We may have to put some more money in here from EcoDevo to help them make it through the end. That is all I have right now. Is there any questions besides the one I need to find out for you?
And didn't we put some in earlier this year in the Meridian Center fund, and how much, do you remember how much that was?
We always put 100,000 per year. Last year, we had to do 200,000 because of what it was, so we'll put in maybe another 50. I won't go clear to the 200 if we don't have to.
Can you just refresh the memory on the interest idle funds? Just exactly how we use them?
They go into the general fund,
Okay, so this
just as part of our revenue stream to help us
revenue? Okay.
lower the property tax.
Any more questions for Donna? Thank you very much, Donna.
Thank you.
Next item this evening is to consider a resolution to continue the sidewalk rebate program. Is that going to be Ms. Likirodopoulos? I'm getting better at that.
We're keeping a tally. Who can say Rebecca's name appropriately?
All right, well, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. So first thing I have for you this evening is a resolution to continue the sidewalk rebate program. As you all remember, you instituted this program in February, and it was partially to address some of the large amounts of violation notices that came in 2020 because of the pandemic, people walking more. We had 100 violations in 2020, and this was a partnership program to help the citizens with this necessary infrastructure. So what I do have on the screen for you is I went ahead and went back to 2010 and tracked the amount of violations we've had and the amount of square footage that's resulted in replacements of your infrastructure. This has happened in many, many reports. I just compiled it into a couple of quick graphs. What we have been able to see as we went back and we started rebating the 2020 that you had set aside $75,000 for is we did rebate 41 of those property owners that were included that came to us. We did not say no to anyone. And then because the second part of that resolution was for 2021 and also allowed people to self-report if they wanted to and voluntarily join this, we have had 26 property owners in 2021. So in total, we have expended for both years $41,648.03. And it's a total of 67 properties with over 13,000 square feet. And so you can see that we're actually rapidly improving the infrastructure with this rebate program. So the resolution before you is to utilize the remaining amount of funding. It comes out to a little bit under $110,000 that you had originally set aside, and let this continue in perpetuity or until the funding runs out or it's otherwise funded, so that we can continue to offer this program to our property owners and improve our infrastructure.
Thank you.
What's our resolution number?
Denise?
Sure. That would be G-1263.
Thank you.
I move to approve G-1263.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Are you doing the next one as well? Awesome. Next item is to consider a letter of support with the Newton Murals for lighting at the 414 North Oak building.
Okay, so I have a picture here for your reference. The address is actually for the entire parcel, so this is the piece where you can see from behind City Hall. Actually, I look at it when I park in the mornings. Newton Murals has generously worked with us in creating a welcoming mural that we would be able to see from the platform that would hopefully be finished in early spring to help mark our sesquicentennial. They are asking that we send a letter of support in this, that we would support the project and do some solar paneled lighting on it so that it can be seen from all of our visitors, even if they arrive at 3 a.m. on the train, as a welcome to our city. They are asking for this letter of support so that they can secure the funding. And after the funding is secured, we could enter into a formal agreement and figure that out. But this is just so that they can submit for funding opportunities.
Well, it'd be great to see.
That would be.
And just as a reminder for the benefit of the public, the Southwest Chief, we are the East-West interchange right now for the Chief. It comes in from Chicago and then departs as you meet the train. There's about an hour to an hour and a half layover. And it comes in between 2:30 and 3 in the morning and then departs between 3 and 3:30 in the morning, the opposite direction. And despite that incredibly inconvenient time, we typically, in a non-pandemic year, host about 340,000 passengers through the station at that crazy time of day or night. You can also get off the train there and get on a Greyhound bus that's called the B line and take it south through Wichita, and it goes to Oklahoma City, where it interchanges with the next Amtrak station, which hosts the Heartland Flyer. And the Flyer interconnects from Oklahoma City to Dallas-Fort Worth, where you can then go to New Orleans, or you can go to California. So we have been working for about a decade on extending that portion of the passenger rail so you don't have to take that bus. And we have high hopes that money has been included and is still included in the federal infrastructure bill that would pay for the line and track improvements needed on the Oklahoma and Kansas side of the line. It's about $90 million on the Oklahoma side of the line and about $30 million on the Kansas side of the line. So when that would be in place, we would anticipate we would host an additional 100,000-ish visitors just through that interconnection, in addition to what we already host on the bus and the Southwest Chief. And it's really neat because it would make Newton once again the northwest, southeast, in the national interchange for long-distance passenger rail in the entire nation. And the last time this happened, it used to run regularly in the 1970s. And at that time, we switched as many as 60 passenger rail cars in a day. So we were hopeful that once all of those items are completed, Amtrak is looking at how to make this a more daytime route, and it's just going to depend on when we have to leave Dallas, when we have to arrive in Kansas City, when they need to get to Chicago for the other interchanges. So this would be a very welcome and nice attraction to those visitors.
Awesome. So you just need to
Just need a motion.
Formal
motion for
approval.
the letter of support for
Yes,
approval?
please.
Okay, I move that we approve a letter of support for the murals
Thank you.
project.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item this evening is to consider the 2020 golf cart lease for Sand Creek Station and golf cars. I believe that's Donna and a Chris.
Yeah, we're going to tag team it here.
Yep.
In 2017, we entered into a 48-month lease agreement with EasyGo through Kansas Golf and Turf for 76 golf carts because the previous fleet was failing. At that time, it was decided that the GPS system on the carts would not be replaced because it was pretty expensive to do. And we did look at an option for lithium batteries, but it was also declined because it was very expensive. We also had just kind of had a heart attack when we got hit with a $100,000 balloon payment at the end of that one. So we asked them to make that optional. So we do have an optional buyout at the end of this contract. Our contract runs out in June of next year. I think I said April here, but it's June for sure. Chris has solicited bids from several companies. We got 2 of them back. The third one declined because of supply chain issues. Both bids are for lithium batteries. They've become more affordable. They're last longer, and they can withstand the tech equipment that our customers are asking for and using. They also will include a new GPS system because the current system is badly failing or outdated and failing. This is a 60-month lease instead of a 48 like the old one. We've included the bid sheets for you. And just to kind of, as the financial implications, it was, what they would do is we could use, would take the buyout of 91.2, and they'd give us 152,000 still. So that's how much those carts are worth during this pandemic age. So we'd get our monthly lease payments down to $45.92 instead of the original $73.99. So that is good news. These would be paid out of the capital funds that the golf course has each year. It's $100,000, and this is about $40,000 of it on the old one. There's also a GPS system that we have to pay for by a lease, but that is going to be paid by Chris from the operating funds at the golf course itself. And I was asked to kind of look at the local banks, and I checked with Intrust, and they can do a full, it's a capital lease, and their payments would be like $7,400 a month for 60 months. It's 2.25% interest. Interest is better, and you will have the equity at the end, but it's also about $200 and some thousand more for the whole thing.
Right.
So we have to decide what you want, which way you want to go. And I'll let Chris kind of tell you a little bit about the new cards, or if you have any questions about them, he can answer those.
Sure. Well, Mr. Mayor and City Commission staff and citizens, thank you for letting me come out tonight. And Donna, thank you for providing all that information. As we know, hate to say it, that a global pandemic had the impact that it had on golf, which is amazing. The velocity in golf right now is just off the charts. We haven't seen figures like these since Tiger was reigning in the mid-90s, and Sand Creek Station will have its banner financial year. I feel confident that I can say that in a public forum because we will. That said, you know, the velocity of the activity at the golf course has weighed heavily on the golf cart fleet. I just want to provide you all just kind of a state of where our existing fleet is. You know, we've reached the life of the golf cars not so much because of its length of time, because of its utilization. You know, in 2020, the golf course remained open, and we operated under the strictest and safest protocols. With the help of city staff, we were able to provide a service, I think, that was fantastic going through COVID. And that said, we went to a single rider cart policy. So there weren't, even though it accommodates 2 people, so if you do 35,000 rounds, theoretically, if a golf car is used, if everybody rides, it's 17,500 golf cars are used at the golf course. Well, okay, we only had 1 individual in a car. So the long story short, you know, I was a little concerned when we went out and started seeking bids, and was more than pleased when both bidders came back with a with a significant commitment to the existing fleet. In fact, with money that could be applied to the next fleet. The lithium golf cars and the new GPS features will be something that this golf course will offer that I can't think of anyone else in the greater Wichita area that will provide this. And Sand Creek Station still is, I think, a destination venue, meaning that tournaments, and both competitive and both corporate, as well as commuters from, you know, Kansas and extending beyond the state line, still come to Sand Creek Station as a destination. It's still a nationally acclaimed golf course. So providing that experience, you know, you got to stay competitive. I will say that I think the industry, and I think there was a valuable lesson learned in 2001 in our industry, when we thought that golf was just going to continue with this, you know, sustainability, and all of a sudden when rounds started going down, a lot of operators fell asleep at the wheel. They didn't invest in their product, they didn't invest in their people, and they didn't invest in their plans. So I think it's something that will certainly benefit the city of Newton with a new golf car fleet, and I also think it'll provide us leverage to possibly adjust rates. You know, people, I think, in my opinion, people don't mind paying with discretionary income for an experience if that experience is enhanced. And this new golf cart fleet can definitely do that. And I think it'll also secure consistent business for many years to come, you know, both with daily fee and with outings. So I stand for any questions. I just wanted to provide you all kind of a snapshot of what's going on in my mind. And I've worked with Donna and I've worked with Kelly on this in great depth. So I'm very excited to have this discussion tonight.
So have we always leased, or have we ever bought those out and retained them afterwards?
No, we've bought the fleet before. Now, I think the first fleet was purchased through the bond commission, I believe.
Correct. It was purchased through the Public Building Commission, the PBC.
Public Building Commission.
That funded the build out of the course. And remember, the PBC is a combination of the city, excuse me, the school district, and the rec commission.
Something that, I mean, it's something, and Donna and I have bounced it back, is it's the value equation. It's, you know, do you want to purchase the fleet outright in hopes of the variance between leasing them and between what the note would be, and having an ROI at the end of that term? Are the carts going to be worth the value of the difference? You know, if I'm just using simple math, I'm not saying these are factual numbers, but theoretically, if the variance was $152,000 at the end of 60 months, are those golf cars going to be worth more than $2,000? So is it money well spent? Now, obviously, some of that is on us on how we maintain the fleet. It's also about, you know, fair market value, you know, and who knows what's going to happen in 5 years with everything. I mean, the way that the supply chain's going, as we all know, it seems like it is a seller's market. And I think that's why we were able to get such a great deal on the existing fleet that we have.
Because we're going to end up, after the buyout payment of about $91,000, we're going to end up, as Donna and Chris mentioned, with about $152,000 in equity that we are going to, hopefully, our recommendation would be to utilize that to pay down and make the monthly payments less over that period of 5 years. The trade-off is, if we do that and do a strict lease, we don't necessarily have that buyout option at the end. And to Chris's point, we don't know what the market will be like in 5 years. So trying to use our crystal ball or magic 8 ball or whatever you're using in the moment. So,
But this is the oddity. The previous 2 leases didn't have that.
correct. That's my understanding.
That's
Definitely an anomaly. I mean, if anyone's looked at buying a used car lately, holy moly.
you can find one.
Yeah, yeah.
So it would behoove us to say, okay, we have much more cost-efficient monthly payments of $45.92 than the difference in our monthly money. How are we going to invest that wisely to make up for what, if we would buy it outright? Seems to me if you manage your money wisely there, which you are, that might be the best scenario to go with, what's laid out here with the $45.92.
We also have lots of other equipment needs at the golf course, like a new beverage cart, for instance.
Yeah.
And we don't want to go into debt for this kind of stuff. We want to be able to pay cash for it. So if we have more money in our MER, we can buy it outright with that extra money a month instead of at the end. So
Right.
it's, have to kind of weigh that out too.
Trading equity for cash flow.
Exactly. Any more questions for Mr. Tui?
For the benefit of the public who might not have the agenda packet in front of them, the one thing we neglected to mention is one of the reasons we're looking at this now is we have been notified that if we order now, it's probably 6 to 12 months before the fleet would arrive. And so we need to be in the market now, hopefully that way they arrive by June, or as soon after as possible. And if they don't arrive until July or August or September even, that is when the lease payments will begin regardless. And these numbers are locked, they are fixed regardless of if it comes in June
That
or
was my
September.
question.
Yes, sir.
So our residual value is locked in.
With both of them.
Yes, as soon as the contract is signed with either of the responding vendors.
Okay.
Chris, are you just as comfortable with either one of these, with EasyGo or with Club Car?
I am. I really am. I think both of them are a fantastic product. You know, in our company, we actually we have a great blend. We have a lot of success with Club Car. We have a lot of success with EasyGo. And the third bidder, Yamaha, wanted so desperately to bid. They just said they couldn't get any product, they couldn't get any equipment for best case scenario Q1 of 2023, to Kelly's point. So it's, yeah, there is some concern, you know, kicking the can down the road is just only going to get worse, you know, when we're able to get any kind of ETA on this fleet. But I'm very comfortable with either one.
And they both have the same time windows for it.
They do. Club Car could probably commit a little early, but what's also good, again, to Kelly's point, is that on this existing fleet, you know, the lease payments, they actually end May of June of next year. And EasyGo say in June, Club Car say in April, which is perfect.
It does look like that with the EasyGo, you have a few more amenities.
I do, and I appreciate you pointing that out, Commissioner Valentine. There is one mistake. I do not have, we will not get the rain covers on the EasyGo card. That is a mistake on my part. However, with the USB port, that's going to be a huge major plus. We live with our phones. I even asked about the draw on the lithium batteries, and they said there's no issues whatsoever. So that was the only inclusion I needed to omit on the EasyGo side. But I love them both. I think they're both premium vehicles.
There's only $173 difference.
It's amazing how close they got.
Yeah, I think for that, with the extra amenities, I would,
Well, and we're not having to use in-house for any logos or cart numbering and all of that as well, so that.
The
cleans-
cooler with the bracket's pretty important, too.
Not if we get the bar cart.
Can keep our coolers.
Which one would you rather have?
I don't want to say, the press is here. I don't want to start making
Oh,
bad. I'm
okay.
just joking.
Okay, well,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Honestly, they're both fantastic. I
Okay.
really mean that. I'd be happy with either one.
I mean, there's a 19 cents different per unit. So, I mean, I would think the EasyGo has the cooler on the back. If you're
Although
gonna
Donna
spend
said I
that
was going to pay for the GPS out of my account. I want to make sure that it's going to be out of the golf course's account.
yeah.
Good try, Donna.
I think the one with the more amenities is a good deal.
So what kind of motion do we need?
Whatever your pleasure is, whichever bid you would like to accept.
Okay.
There.
So I would make a motion that we accept the EasyGo lithium bid and start that process now.
I
Second.
second that.
Second and a third.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Thank you so much.
It was kind of cool how I played on Friday and you had to bring me another cart because the batteries ran down. So,
It was premeditated. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item this evening is the Planning Commission.
Yes, and I will handle that
you,
as
Kelly.
Ms. Loomis is up this evening. So before you this evening is a recommendation from the North Newton Area Planning Commission to accept and approve a rezoning or a zoning amendment for property owned by the city of Newton that is located at First and Boyd Street. That property is on your map here where the green dot is, if you see it on the screen. As you may know, we're very pleased to report again that for the past several years, the city has been working with Mennonite Housing, which is a private nonprofit that specializes in senior housing, which is 55 and older. It is multifamily, might be single residences. Multifamily just means it's rental. So it could be duplexes, triplexes. We've had a partnership with them. They have applied for tax credits to KHRC, which they use to offset and lower the cost of a certain number of units so that they are more affordable for a percentage, and it's based on the income level of the senior that would be living in the particular apartment. With that award, they are planning to build 2 phases of properties, including a clubhouse, which would be in phase 1. It's over on this side of the property here. But you'll see these lots along the front are zone C2, which is general commercial. So the rezoning request was to rezone these lots you see here in the orange to R3, which is multifamily, which allows for that particular multifamily use. Like I said, it can be single homes, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. Talking to Mennonite Housing, they are planning to be, of course, universal build, all one level, 1 story, no stairs, all of those good things so that they are accessible for a large contingent of our population. So the required public hearing and notification was prepared by city staff. The Planning Commission meeting in October, earlier this month, there was no one to speak at the hearing opposing the request. And so we would provide you with 2 requests for motions. First, that you would make a motion and a second to receive the recommendation of the Planning Commission to rezone that property from C2 general commercial to R3 multifamily dwelling district. And then secondarily, if you would consider an ordinance that would officially amend that zoning district, and then we will file that and make sure that we update the city's zoning map appropriately. Do you have questions? I know we've talked kind of ad nauseum about this project off and on over the years. So this is the last step. I will tell you in speaking with Mr. Adrian, who's the president of Mennonite Housing Wichita, and it should be noted that's a large nonprofit. We are working with the Wichita contingent. There's one in Hutch, several in Kansas City. And Mr. Adrian says they are still on track to start moving and begin dirt work, weather permitting, the first week of December. It's fantastic news. There'll be about 32 units in the clubhouse with the first phase, along with a trail walking path. And then there will be a retention pond in this area you see here, which is a reserve that will accommodate all the drainage, but it will also be a nice park amenity that the public can utilize.
Alrighty.
I move that we receive the recommendation of the Planning Commission for this zoning change.
I will second that.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Got it.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion to receive is approved.
We have an ordinance.
An ordinance number of 502, or 5062-21.
I move we approve ordinance 5062-21.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you so much. This is huge for our community. We're very excited to see it starting.
Thank you.
Hardly wait.
Is this, next item on this evening's agenda is to conduct a review of the city's noise ordinance. Chris?
Sure, and as you mentioned at your previous meeting, we received a request from a citizen that made that request that you take a look at the city's ordinance. We've put together in the agenda packet the current ordinance pertaining to noise in residential districts, as well as some possible options for the benefit of anyone that's watching the meeting now that wasn't here last week. Essentially, this ordinance has been on the books since 1998. It prohibits the use of a essential musical playing device within a residential property between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. that can be heard outside of the property line. There's also a subsection pertaining to vehicles, so a vehicle on the street, and that uses a 50-foot measurement. Essentially, I put some options that are there. I think big picture, and we talked about this at the previous commission meeting, the role of the city commission is really to create citywide legislation, not to focus in too much on the particular controversy that's raised. We don't want to necessarily solve that, but we want to come up with an ordinance that works for everybody. So obviously, taking no action is an option. You've got an ordinance that's on the books. You can expand those hours from the 10 p.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. You can use a metric like we use with the vehicles to simply say 50 feet, 100 feet, not necessarily that rule of outside of the property line. Some communities in Kansas measure decibels, and that is an option. We don't have those resources necessarily on hand, but we can investigate it and look at those things if you're interested. I included a provision from the Wichita City Code that has a subsection that deals with essentially reasonable sensibility standard. So it's not necessarily going to, it's this many decibels. It's, would a person with reasonable sensibilities be annoyed by this sound? While somewhat vague, it should be noted that this type of ordinance carries a lot of discretion for the officer that's on the street, for the prosecutor that's charging out the case. This isn't a DUI offense where you have a mandatory arrest, where you have to file charges. Typically, the officers on the street try and solve problems with this type of issue. And then finally, I put just a hybrid. You could have a mix and match in terms of different hours. You could use the reasonable sensibility standards during the day, which should solve a number of issues. You could go to the more strict outside of the property lines during the hours that we have. I know that Commissioner McBroom saw some issues in that of just limiting it to those evening hours to say that essentially, all bets are off after those hours, and that's a fair point. So not looking for action. We are looking for direction, questions. Chief Dunleavy's not here tonight. I did talk to them some about police position. They support what you will put on the books, and he'll be here for questions, obviously, at the next meeting. But really, at this point, it's questions, it's direction. We can come back with an ordinance if you have to make changes. I know the citizen that made the request is still here, so I don't know if you'd like to hear more from her at some point or from other citizens. That would be, of course, appropriate should you wish.
I really liked the Wichita City Code one, and it is broad. So is it possible to take something like that and tweak that with what is currently in the subsection 17.210?
It absolutely is.
More specific, like, the property line, because the Wichita Code doesn't have anything like that.
Right.
And I understand that's a real job for the officers. So I thought maybe you could
Absolutely.
pull that in with the Wichita Code and fashion that to fit specifically for what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And in fairness, I just had a select provision in the memo, but I believe you're correct on that it is wide open. And that's absolutely something that we can implement in a draft.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see the full Wichita City Code version of it, how that could possibly play out here. How long do you remember when that was enacted in Wichita?
I can't be certain.
It says 1998 on
Well, that's Newton, and I'm not, well, unless you've already pulled up, have you pulled up Wichita?
Oh, no, I thought that was Wichita's in the bottom there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Should have read the opening paragraph, I guess. Huh?
Right. So I'd be curious the success, how that one's played out in Wichita.
Absolutely.
Can I ask the Newton, the resident, if you looked like you might not be familiar with that Wichita Code at all? Are you not familiar? Could we read that to her?
Yeah, absolutely. And I provided, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. That, okay. I did read that. Okay. That's what I was asking. I like the fact that is 24 hours.
Yes.
And
I do too, and I think that would be really good for anybody that is working at home as well.
Well, I certainly wouldn't like it if I had to listen to, especially where we live.
How
We
does,
have neighbors connected. I don't want to hear that.
In fact, this was happening
how does it play out besides just noise? Because this is radios and amplifications and everything.
Right.
There's all other sorts of noises that could be equally outside of a reasonable sensibility.
Sure, and that's important context. The Wichita ordinance for that provision, I believe, is still limited to sound-producing devices. So your neighbor using a chainsaw, it wouldn't fall under the ordinance because it wouldn't fit that definition of a sound-producing device.
So are we neglecting something by not looking at that as well?
Yeah, I mean, we can look at those outside of the sound-producing device issues. I don't know in terms of calls, not to put Jason on the spot, but the frequency.
Sorry,
I mean,
Lieutenant Thompson, for the benefit of who can't see off the camera, so.
I mean, there's dogs,
Sure,
there's
and we have an ordinance that covers.
working on cars late at night.
Sure.
I mean, I've been guilty in the past as well.
Sure.
So, I think that if we're going to hone in on one, we need to look at noise pollution as a whole and not just, maybe crawl, walk, run, look at one part of it and then concerted effort to continue.
That's fair.
Just for the benefit of understanding, if somebody was working on their car in their driveway at 1 o'clock in the morning and they had a compressor running to run their impact, I mean, that would be considered, that would fall under the noise ordinance, right?
Well, it wouldn't under this provision.
But it's
Whether there's another theory to charge that out, there may be.
Okay.
But I would say that
Unless you.
because the noise ordinance as drafted currently on the books and as we're proposing is limited to sound-producing devices,
I see.
that wouldn't
Okay.
fit, right? And that, to the mayor's point, for sure, we can surely look at a wider scope. That's fair.
What you're describing, sir, reminds me, sir, also of how we treat light and light pollution when there is an LED sign that is adjacent to a residential neighborhood district that might be flashing all night long. We have provisions similar, so light versus sound. So maybe we could look at a hybrid of a couple of options, maybe?
Right, absolutely. And we obviously have to carve out a number of exceptions and look at daytime and nighttime, but yeah, we can absolutely explore that for sure.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Valentine that the Wichita one I think is a good starting point. I like that it leaves some discretion to the officer. I had somebody in my church ask me if, what if we have an outside service? Are we going to not be allowed to do that anymore because of noise? And it's like, well, if an officer shows up and we have an hour service and my neighbor decides they don't like listening to, me singing or something on Sunday morning, then, which is fair, but, it's like they're going to be done in an hour and they're not being obnoxious with it. So I like Wichita that it leaves some sensibility for reasonableness. Yeah.
Makes sense.
And there's probably a carve-out for the 4th of July.
Well, and again, we're so limited to sound-producing devices and,
Yeah, but
in this ordinance, our residential zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. We'll have to look at those exceptions.
Yes.
100%.
Sounds like you got your work cut out for you, sir.
Make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Next item this evening is to receive an update on the status of the City of Newton strategic plans.
Yes,
Kelly?
if you will stand by for just a moment, please. I'm going to switch presentations for you here. You have these at your bench as well, and I've got extra copies if anyone would like these as we go forward. And come on, PowerPoint. Also, you have copies, just as a refresher of several items. You have the City Commission's 2021 through 2025 strategic plan that you adopted. And then you also, here we go, you also are going to have copies, just as a reminder, of the one-page summary of the 2019 Housing Market and Needs Assessment and then the corresponding housing-specific strategic plan that you adopted to implement those measures. You also have a copy of the 2020 Community Survey results and then the action plans that you had staff develop from there. So we just wanted to take this opportunity to give you an update. I know we've only really been working on this. You adopted this plan at the end of February of this year. So we will have a full annual review for you at the end of the year. Prior to our, annual reviews for all the departments. But we just wanted to touch base because we as staff got to looking at this. Commissioner Kane was making some presentations earlier this year. And as we were helping him assemble some of our accomplishments, not just from this year, but previous years, we kind of thought, we're in the daily grind and we do this and we celebrate our wins for that brief moment and then we move on. And I don't think we realize how amazing and how many great things we're actually accomplishing. So we just wanted to take a minute and celebrate that and share that with the community. So just as a reminder, again, I mentioned you adopted this plan in February of 21. And it included the priorities in the plans we talked about, your community survey and action plan, the market and housing strategic plan, and then Newton, which is, of course, the 20-year comprehensive plan for the community. You established 4 strategic overarching goals to kind of narrow in and hone in on those top priorities and what we wanted to not only focus on for the community, but also where are we going to spend money? Because we all know we have limited resources, so how are we going to prioritize those things? So let's be really strategic and make sure we're answering the specific needs and wants of the community. So your mission statement you developed was a thriving community with an expanded tax base and a city organization that provides trustworthy service. Your goals were to increase the tax base and grow the community, increase housing stocks of all types and price points, increase our amenities to improve our quality of life and place. How do we make Newton the place to live, work, play, grow, retire, raise your family? How do we service the whole gambit of the population? And how do we maintain and improve our infrastructure? Because if we don't have great streets, if we don't have water that flows, if we don't have sewer that works appropriately, if we can't treat it and make everything safe, if we don't have police and fire protection and EMS, then we obviously aren't meeting those basic needs for infrastructure. So you may recall, and thank you, Adam, for this wonderful chart, courtesy of Newton Now. In the survey, we asked the community, what will you support? What do you want to see, whether it's amenities or what do you want us to focus those resources on? And then what are you willing to pay more for in order to make that happen? So what you see is the blue is the initiatives that you are willing to support as a community, and then the corresponding orange red is what are you willing to pay more for. And it's always interesting to see the juxtaposition of everybody would like to see certain things, but if it was going to cost more money, whether on your property taxes or an increase in your utilities, whatever the case may be, there's a bit of a disconnect you might notice. So it's just something to look at and keep in mind as we go through this and prioritize projects. So what we wanted to talk to you about was one of the things in your goals was recreation and quality of life and place amenities. So some of the things you asked us to do that we have accomplished. You asked us to renew a new 20-year agreement for the Public Building Commission. We mentioned that as part of the Sand Creek Station Golf Course discussion. That is a partnership between the city and the school district and the Recreation Commission. We each levy about 1 mil. 1 mil is not $1 million. It's a figure, it's a formula, and it equates to, for the city, it's about $129,000 a year. And so that comes from the city. The school district and the rec commission levy on a larger area than the city, so their mill is worth more because the school district expands outside of our city limits. So all of those 3 entities put that money in together, and we maintain all of the stadiums, all of the ballparks. There are things that the city specifically picks up and pays for, and that the rec commission does. It replaces the turf at athletic field, every 8 to 10 years as it wears out. And now, through this new agreement, it's been extended another 20 years, was set to expire this year. It is paying for the improvements in the brand new swimming pool that you see. We are working on some Centennial Field ballpark improvements. We bid it out earlier this year. Cost of building materials was far more than we had anticipated because of the pandemic. So we put a pause on, and we're going to rebid pretty quickly here and just see if we get any better prices. And if not, we will stop and take stock and see what other options might be. So you asked us to make sure we were pursuing alternative funding to complement all of these projects in any way we could. We did that. We applied for some Pathways grants through the Healthy Harvey Coalition, and we've looked at a number of other opportunities through Department of Commerce. Some of the, Rebecca's, the CVB, the CVB one was the right one? You're nodding, yeah, sorry. There were several opportunities we pursued through different entities at the state. Also, some of that also came from KDOT. That's the other entity. So again, we helped 2 private farm and art markets become more established and have more regular hours in different parts of the city and different days. And then I would be remiss if I did not mention that the governing body has done all of this while keeping the city's property tax, the mill levy, stable for 4 years in a row. It has not changed. So we're very proud of that fact. And next category would be business and economic development and growing our tax base. So we have invested in our infrastructure improvements on South Kansas Avenue. That is going to serve not only the development that is down around Walmart, the existing housing where we've needed additional entrances and exits for quite some time, but the new commercial development that will be provided by Occidental. And again, we would be remiss if we did not thank KDOT for providing us $3.2 million to build that project. So that is something that the city only made a very minimal match in the end. And again, we are thankful for our partners at the state that are making that possible. And that will, again, bring more retail, and also part of that development in the long term and the phasing is for additional office space, could be medical office space to complement the medical center across the street. It's also potentially could be additional housing, multifamily, senior, or individual residential properties. We are finishing up Park Aerospace's expansion out at the Airport Industrial Park. They got kind of caught in the supply chain limbo like everyone else. I failed to mention Bunting on here. They had quite a good expansion this year as well, here in town and overseas. Pre-stressed concrete, they are working on an expansion at their facility, which is near North Newton, just up near Old 81. We have a development agreement with Standridge, which is an existing company out at the industrial park. They had several years to build, and again, they're kind of in limbo because of supply chain right now, but they are looking at quite an expansion at their current facility. Again, we've recently announced GAF, which is a parent company that owns multiple building material companies, including roofing and insulation and some other things. They have recently purchased about 230, I'm saying this wrong. Help me out with that. 230 acres. Is there 230,000 acres? 230 acres. That was a lot of property in my brain. I was like, I'm not saying this right. So I wish, right? That would be fantastic. Not that we have much property available. So 230 acres, and they are still finalizing what that layout is going to be and how many employees they will have, but it will be a manufacturing facility. And that's what we do in this area of the country is we really do a good job of advanced manufacturing, whether it is aerospace industry or construction. I mean, think about AGCO and Excel. We are really good at building things. This is what we're good at. So this is a great fit job-wise for our community. So we're looking forward to more information on that coming soon. And then, of course, we talked about Human Plant Solutions, which is HPS, who we've mentioned here. We utilized a city-owned building at the airport for an incubator space for them for about 6 months, and they have since moved out and are working on growing and expanding their business. And they build hemp and composite-based prosthetic limbs on a one-off custom basis for medical facilities and doctors. So again, a really great thing for here in our community. Again, we established the Community Development Commission, which is doing business as Choose Newton. We have the Choose Newton website, which is our community landing page we've been working on for a while, and my hyperlink will cooperate with me here. It is choose-newton.com. And so we are working on still building this, so it is active and you can utilize it, but it talks about here are like, what do you do here? How do you find a home? Find your job, find your school, find your lifestyle, special activities. Like housing will take you to real estate options, whether it's rentals or how do you buy a house. Jobs can connect you to whether it's kansasworks.com or Indeed or private business posting. Education is not just our public schools, but it's Bethel College, it's Heston College, it's our private universities, our private schools, Newton Bible Christian. So arts and recreation, we are very proud. We always brag that if you can't find something to do in Newton, you are not looking, because there is always something happening in this community that is fun to attend and participate in. So we just wanted a place for the community to be able to land, whether it is when we are selling the community to somebody like GAF who's looking to locate here, or whether it's just a one-off thing and our development team is looking to recruit new people to come and fill those new senior housing that's coming in. So we just wanted to kind of share that with you. We are the Community Development Commission. Choose Newton is pursuing the establishment of a Main Street program, which has been something much talked about in the community. And then again, we are proud to say that we were awarded $150,000 in CDBG CV3 grants, which was ARPA money, and that was distributed to a number of businesses in the community, and to the tune of about $6,200 a piece to help them with supply chain and general business expenses. So that we feel like that was super beneficial to our community. So we mentioned growth of housing units. We just wanted to give you a snapshot in time. This is how many new units we've added. So a unit can be one apartment or a unit can be one home. That's why we don't necessarily divide it into multifamily like we added one new apartment complex. Okay, well, it had 16 units in it. So if you will take, that's why number of housing units. Of note, in 2017 is when both Cottonwood Crossing Phase 1 and Prairie Fire over near Walmart both opened that year. So you'll see there's quite a number of higher units that year. And then we have had 12 new home builds year to date, and we're anticipating a few more. Some have been specs, a few have been custom. So a little more on housing. Been working, we've talked about this recently too. The development team for Cottonwood Crossing is looking at a phase 2, which would be additional townhomes or duplexes just south of the existing development, which is near South 24th Street, near Fire Station number 3 off Kansas Avenue. Harvest Point, which we just talked about, that is the Mennonite housing project on the west side of town at First and Boyd. Summer Crossing is owned by Mr. Ron Harder. We recently started working with him to extend specials for streets, water, and sewer. That'll be 24 new single-family lots in addition to others that we already have platted in the area that are build-ready. Rebecca mentioned earlier the extension of that sidewalk rebate program, weatherization program, which targets the neighborhood revitalization area of town, which is the older area of town, and it helps pay for painting and siding and guttering to help keep our homes more stable so they don't get to the point where we have to remediate them, whether it's a code or a structural issue. We implemented the right-of-way tree trimming program, and there is also a new amendment to our city code a few meetings ago that will allow longer tree limbs in the right-of-way, which kind of has come about at citizen request multiple times. You've had people approach you and say, we understand the trucks have to get through, but can we please consider that? And so this was in response to that request as well. The bulky item stickering and pickup program, we've had lots of conversations over time about the proverbial mattress or couch that sits at the curb for however long. So this is a way to kind of expedite that process, and it still gives every citizen who gets stickered, they still have the option for the normal process. They're not fined. They can call in and request that pickup. If they don't, then the fee to pick up goes from $10 to $20, but we'll still pick it up for you. So we're trying to expedite that blight remediation. And then the creation of the land bank. The Choose Newton Community Development Commission recently created a land bank. We are working on getting bylaws and appointments in place for that. And that is an opportunity for us to, again, help remediate some of these older areas of town. A property gets in disrepair. The homeowner is either out of state. Maybe the property's been vacant a long time. Maybe the homeowner has passed away and the people who inherited it are out of state. This is an opportunity. They can donate it to the land bank, and then the land bank can rehome it back to a private developer who can either fix it up or it can be torn down. It can be redeveloped through our partners at Habitat or, again, through a private realtor or developer. So infrastructure improvements, we have done a lot of work in our taxiway, and again, super huge thanks to the FAA, who has given us $7 to $9 million over the last few years to rehab our taxiways and our runways. Fantastic amenity for our community. If you didn't know, the Newton Airport is the reliever for Eisenhower. So if something ever happened in Wichita at the airport, those planes would be diverted to us to land. We have an 11,000-foot runway, which is not common in Kansas, and we're one of the few that can actually land Dreamliners comfortably. So it's a really neat amenity. Plus, we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of contractors, and there's a whole industrial park that's grown up around the airport, and most of them are aviation-related firms. So we're incredibly proud of that and the economic impact that brings to our community. We've been working on groundwater tanks at First Street, and then water tower rehab and painting. And again, we've remodeled the law enforcement center recently. We've had the wetlands expansion out by Mission Plant, the water treatment plant, and then several big things that you don't see but are super important, like the addition and repairs, expansion of sewer basins, which is underground, and that tells us what the capacity of a particular area of town is. Can we handle more development, multifamily, commercial, single family, or is it already at capacity? So those upgrades are important, but you never see them, so it's important we point those things out. And then some wayfinding signage and rebranding, of course. Choose Newton is working on that. You've probably seen some of that go up around town. That's the flag down at the bottom right. And then, of course, next year on 2/22/22, we will be celebrating our sesquicentennial, which is our 150th birthday. We will have lots of promos going out about this. This is the official logo that was released last week on our social media sites. This is not just the city celebration, it's the community celebration. And we will have, like I said, a lot of upcoming special events. We will be collaborating with annual events for co-branding opportunities. And then we will have some merchandise available soon. And thank you to Newtonian Benjamin Meyer for designing and drawing the artwork for us.
That's great.
So, you have questions?
There's
We have
lots to
answers.
unpack. Thank you.
I know, and I know this is a lot, but you know what? Think about this truly, like that's February to now. Look at all the neat stuff we've done, how many great things are happening in our community. So we will have a full annual State of the City report for you soon, but If anyone's interested, I have all those reports, or they are all, of course, available electronically on our website. So thank you for your time. I know that's a lot.
Thank you, Kelly. Next item this evening is to consider moving the second meeting in November to the November 30th date at 12 noon. Any discussions?
Works for me.
Yeah, just for the public, this is in response to Thanksgiving and holidays.
Holidays.
So I'd make a motion that we move that meeting to November 30th at 12 o'clock noon.
Aye, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Also need to make sure you cancel the 24th meeting then.
Okay.
Would you, if you'd like to just make that amendment to the motion, you can do that.
I'll make an amendment to the motion to cancel the November 24th meeting.
Add that to that. Okay. And Leroy, are you okay with that then too?
Sure.
Great.
All righty. Thank you. All righty. Next item this evening is the Citizens Forum. Okay.
Actually, we should, did we say November 24th? It's actually November 23rd.
Oh, excuse me, I misspoke. I apologize. Yes.
Okay. If does it, it'll be the 23rd. Okay, that it's canceled.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Very good. All righty. So we have 3 individuals signed up to speak to us this evening at Citizens Forum. Case Health is our first speaker. You would, those of you planning on speaking this evening, if you would approach the podium, please state your name and address.
I'm Kay Self. I live at 115 West 9th.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Mayor and City Commissioners. I am here to thank you for something. You remember what I did 2 weeks ago? A little late to the party. I had my hand up because I pointed to that lady. I said what she said really pushed my buttons, and I'll tell you why. I first came to this podium probably 20 years ago because I had a personal concern. I had lived in Newton for 6 years, moved here from Wichita with a little daughter. I worked at Via Christi in Wichita, and every other weekend is mandatory that we work. I work second shift on weekends. I dreaded weekends because as I would round my corner to come to my house, my neighbors had everything going. Now, I would get home, since I worked second shift, I would get home between 12:15 and 12:30. Not only the noise in their patio, but they had a light on that shone directly into my bedroom window. And this went on every weekend. I was only glad for winter because I thought it might calm things down. I came to the City Commission, and what I saw last week makes me thank you, because this lady stood up here, and she would not go sit back down until she wanted a response out of you. And I sat there so impressed that you listened, because 20 years ago, they didn't. And I believe, well, I know I had interactions with Mr. Willis Heck, and he must have been the mayor. I don't remember, but my advice was put in earplugs, put a shield, eye shield to sleep, turn on noise in your house, you know, Band-Aids like that. And I thought, no, I'm buying this house. I love this house. So I went to the City Commission of Wichita, also Valley Center. They had a noise and nuisance ordinance. I had it in my hand. And Mr. Bob Myers was the attorney, city attorney at that time. And by the way, in between him calling me and I talked to him outside this building with that in my hand, I'll tell you in a minute if I don't lose track of my thought, but I want to tell you, I started calling Mr. Heck in the middle of the night. And Mr. Heck, where is the camera for tonight? Where is it?
Well, one there.
Well,
three
you're
of
a
them.
nice man, and you have a nicer wife. I'll say that, because I would call, and sometimes she would answer the phone. This could be at 2 o'clock in the morning. I thought, if I can't sleep, he won't be able to sleep. I was that mean. I was that mad. You really get angry, don't you? when your personal life and your health is going down. I mean, I hear about city sewer lines and all that stuff. That didn't concern me nearly as much as my life here in this town. So Mr. Heck came over one night or one day, and he said, that isn't just a little 200-watt bulb, that's a spotlight. And indeed it was. It was like a police being behind you. I could literally read a newspaper from my bedroom window, read the Newton Hansen with the light that came from behind me. It was that bad. So noise and light. So what the city commissioner told me then was, the attorney said I needed to take it to court. Well, at that time in my life, I did not have the money. I didn't know where this would go, but I was fighting a fight by myself. But fortunately, I'm still alive. My daughter did well in the Newton High School and so on. But I was so impressed with you giving a nod to this lady 2 weeks ago. I want to thank you for that. And at that forum that we hosted about a week ago, Kathy said that would be a priority of hers. Remember you saying that?
That and the nuisance ordinance.
Yes, I was so impressed with that. You really care. And this lady, city manager, you're good. I've never seen anybody so smart and talk so fast. I mean, really. I'm impressed with the whole outfit, more so than 20 years ago, and thank you for your time.
Good.
Keep working.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Hamchett?
Yes, I am Mike Hansen. I live at 124 East 10th Street. And I am impressed with the meeting tonight, with the speakers that you've had, and impressed with what's going on in the city. I am not a public speaker, so I'm going to read what I have.
Very good.
I'll keep it short. I come to address the issue of the property at 119 East 10th. This house has been vacant for over 2 years and, in my opinion, is unlivable. There are completely open windows in this house, front and back, which I assume is a code violation. There's been a fire in the house. The basement has been flooded at least twice in recent years. The siding on the house is coming loose. The bushes have overgrown the sidewalk, which is, I think, a violation of code. And those bushes are working on the alley. The weeds and the trees are overgrown. There's been 2 of the neighbors that have gone in voluntarily and mowed the weeds and trying to keep the yard somewhat presentable. There's no steps to the back door. And right now there's a bunch of broken glass in the back patio. This property has attracted homeless people, drug dealers, including some who have actually slept in the garage. And there's also one of our main concerns is we have several young children in the neighborhood now. New families, and we've had 2 new families move into the neighborhood recently. This 100 block of East 10th is generally very well kept, and almost without exception, the properties are being improved in one way or another, whether it's landscaping or painting or what have you. Both of these families that I mentioned that have moved into the area have questioned why the city isn't doing something about this property. And I realize there has been some attempts to repair some of the things, but frankly, we think that the owner is thumbing his nose at the city. It doesn't seem fair to allow an absentee landowner to negatively affect the property values of the responsible owners who value their property. The city should be ashamed of allowing this to go on for over 2 years. We simply ask for more action from the city. I have talked to 8 of the neighbors that share these concerns, so I have some neighbors that are here. I don't know if they want to speak or not. And also, there would have been 3 other neighbors that would have been here tonight, except they had prior commitments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well done, by the way. Can you get us an update on what's going on with that property?
Yeah.
Sure, I can tell you that the small bit I know, and then I would defer to legal counsel because it is, to your point, I know it can be an incredibly slow process and it's frustrating. To see that happening in your neighborhood and to have those concerns, especially if it's things like vagrants. I mean, that's very concerning with young children in the neighborhood, absolutely. There is a statutory process by law we have to go through for reporting of those properties and timeframes we are required to give property owners to remediate the specific issues. Oftentimes we will see, especially with out-of-town or out-of-state property owners that let their properties get into those kind of conditions, that they will do just enough and remediate the one issue that they've been cited for, but not really invest in the property as a whole to redevelop it or to live in, those kinds of things. I do know that our environmental officer has been in contact and is constantly working with the owner, trying to remediate the issues and probably several others that I don't know of at this time because I haven't been inside the property. He's working with the gentleman, or excuse me, the property owner, I don't know if it's a gentleman. I would defer to you, sir, on the legal process because the prosecutor would know.
I mean, you outlined it. Obviously, we do have certain parameters that we need to stay with in terms of notice. In terms of this, we can circle back with a full report in terms of the actual status when it's been cited and those things. We can bring that back to your next meeting, no problem.
And for the public, how do they report these? I'm sensing a frustration in a block of our community that they need to have a voice. So what process would those neighbors need to take?
Sure, absolutely.
In this type of a situation?
Calling Jerry Lewis, and I'm going to defer to Aaron too, in terms of what other mechanisms do we have here at the city?
Calling Jerry directly. You can also report violations via our website or the Newton mobile app.
Perfect. So we've got 3 ways that can be communicated to make sure that residents have that voice.
Yeah, and that would just be in general, but I would encourage anyone who, especially if you're having a specific issue with anything you feel is illegal activity on the property or in the neighborhood in general, please do not hesitate to call 911 in the moment, because unless we can have an officer dispatched to you to address that particular issue in the moment, we don't have a way to track that. I know I was speaking with another frustrated resident last week about speeding traffic in his neighborhood, and while he was on the phone with me, he said, I am watching somebody and I know he's speeding from my living room window. And he said, here's his tag number. And I said, sir, I'm sorry, I'm not an officer, but we want to address the issue, but we can't fix a problem we don't know is there. So I would encourage you and all the neighbors, anytime you see that, I know people hesitate to call 911 if they don't think, well, it's not an emergency, even if it could be an emergency, please don't hesitate, because that is how we record calls for specific addresses, how we dispatch all of our officers, even in non-emergency situations. So just for the benefit, please don't ever hesitate. If you even think there's a problem, err on the side of caution, and please, we encourage you to please call 911. And so that way we can get there in the moment and address the criminal activity, whether it's drugs or vagrancies or trespassing.
Is there any kind of plan to come to an end to this? Time-wise?
Generally speaking, typically a call for a code enforcement issue, and Kelly's right, if it's an ongoing crime, you want to get law enforcement involved. If we're talking about specific, the code enforcement side of it, a call to Jerry or through the mechanisms that Aaron mentioned, it gets it on Jerry's plate. Jerry typically does an inspection, sends out a notice, tries to work with the landowner. At a certain point, if those improvement metrics aren't met, it's sent to the city prosecutor for review of charges, and it goes through our environmental hearing officer, which is the city court judge that essentially sits as that administrative officer, determines whether or not there's a violation and can assess a fine. Alternatively, the city prosecutor can file an order asking for specific abatement, whereby the city can go forward, effectuate those repairs, get it up to standard, and then assess those costs against the property. The downside on that is that the city doesn't necessarily recoup all of those dollars as we simply have a lien on the property. But this commission and the city prosecutor have gone forward with that mechanism as well. As to this one, I can't tell you for certain exactly where this is, but at the next meeting or sooner, I'm happy to talk to you in terms of giving you an update in terms of where that's at. I don't know if you have that information or not, but I'm happy to report back to the commission specifically as to where that's at.
I'd like two things. I'd like to make sure that we have your contact information so that our city manager can definitely get you a response personally, or that one of us can. So we need that information, and then the commission needs a response as well.
Absolutely.
And I would ask on this code enforcement, because I really would like to revisit that. You mentioned statutory, so not all of it is that. Some of that is by the decision of the commissions as far as provisions of that ordinance. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, we could be revisiting this, and some of these kinds of things could possibly be alleviated depending on the changes we would make to code enforcement. Would that be a correct statement?
That's fair, but to Kelly's underlying point too, there are certain restrictions in terms of timeline. And there's also practical considerations too in terms of a property owner that is making good efforts, and you'll see those extensions given wisely by Jerry. I'm not talking about this incident,
'cause
but he tries to work with the property owner to see if you can get a resolution. The prosecutor will do the same thing. When I was a full-time prosecutor, I would do that. If someone's making a good faith intent to resolve it, we don't necessarily want to go effectuate the repairs by the city or fine them. It's not getting our result that we want, right? So
Right.
I can't speak to this one yet, but yeah, there's a number of reasons for delays, and some of them are tough calls in terms of how much to work and when it just needs to go to court because you have a clear code violation. We got to make those calls.
But the public safety standpoint is the part that we can't overlook, and that's the part that we need the immediate on. So if there is a public safety issue with the vagrancy and everything, we need to
Yeah, please act on that in the moment. It's really important. It's very much a priority.
And
And I'm saying that, I know you probably do, but just as a reminder for everybody, because since we live stream the meetings and people go back and watch, I get that a lot. People are hesitant to call 911. And I appreciate that. They don't want to overload our emergency responders, but we can't be there in the moment, and unless our officer is there in the moment to witness it and to remediate it. That's an important piece. Thank you.
This piece of property is what we're setting the land bank up for too. The process they're talking about literally takes.
It obviously drags out,
You're
right?
talking maybe two years. The land bank is maybe something that we can get the absentee landowner, if he's tired of messing with it, we can take it into the land bank, and then maybe that can be somewhere they can knock a house down and put up a Habitat for Humanity house.
Or fix it up if it, it depends
or
on the
fix it up,
state of
yeah.
repair, but, yeah.
Yeah,
Concerns us, it's been going on for 2 years,
yeah.
and we don't see an end in sight.
That's the bad part.
Yeah, completely understand the frustration. Let us get
Yeah.
some accurate information and timelines for you, so that way we all have the same information, and then we can see how we can move forward.
Mr. Brinkenhoff? Oh, sir?
Make one more comment. We're new to the neighborhood. We're about 2 or 3 houses. We share the same alley. And the history of this house has been a drug house for a long time. Right now, it's empty, but, so it's not just 2 years. It's just a long-standing issue where it has a history where they just leave it vacant so that people can move in who don't really have any interest other than a place to hang out, perhaps, mix up their drugs or sell. And he lives right next door to it, so for him, it's a bigger issue. We're across the alley, we see the back area, which is a mess. But we've been told that that's been that way for years. It's not just 2 years, it's been a long time.
Thank you guys for making time to come and speak to
Yes.
us. It's really important, and we appreciate it.
Mr. Brinkenhoff, were you going to speak?
Yeah, I'm actually Mike's neighbor. So, yes, I'm Josh Brinkerhoff, 118 East 10th Street. Thank you for allowing our voice to be heard tonight. And this is the first time I've been to something like this, so it's been good to be a part of. Mike said he was coming to this meeting, and as neighbors, I think we want to support each other. So Elise and I, my wife, moved out here in 2015. Right away, pretty much, we saw the activity across the street catty corner us, and we knew fishy business was going on. It wasn't too much longer that we were actually able to get a phone number of, I think, a Harvey County detective, and we got plenty of calls in, and at some point they were able to raid, and shortly after it was abandoned. So I think that was good work. Thank you guys. We're the ones with the small kids now too. We've got 3 kids, 4 years and under, so that's a relief for us. We're kind of worried. All right, at what point are some of these homeless people or something, is it still going to draw some of these questionable characters? And then also with the owner, I don't know, I assume he was aware of the drugs and activity going on. If someone else gets in this home, are they going to be doing the same things? And I mean, too bad for them. We're just going to keep calling it in. But that was the main concern of ours. And then I guess in the state it is now, we're working on our house. We're trying to add value to it. And if that's sitting there, I mean, how much do I really want to put into it? And I think for the most part, a number of our neighbors are putting in some work on their houses as well. So we're just trying to support each other. And I guess I put on my little note here, process, question mark. And so I think you guys answered that. We'd be interested in kind of what you come up with, and if there's anything else I can personally do to bring more attention to it or answer questions so we can get something going on it. It has been sitting there for 2 years, and they replaced the roof, but the front window is still missing. Like, weather's getting in there, and it feels like they're just checking some boxes off so that no one messes with them. So thank you for hearing us, and I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you
for your time.
Most of the neighbors fly their American flags, too.
Awesome. Thank you for standing up. That's great. We'll go around the horn.
Yeah.
Sure.
I just want to compliment 3 neighbors working together. I think that's cool to see. So on a block in one of our neighborhoods in Newton. So thanks for that. I have an odd question, and I was just wondering, I know why half of our streetlights in Newton are blue. I know why. I've read their news article 100 times. But there's a lot of people asking, when is that ever going to get fixed? Is there any leverage the city has to put some pressure on Evergy to say fix it? Because it's getting to be obnoxious. And I mean, I'm young, and sometimes it's hard for my eyes.
Sure.
So
I don't disagree.
I'm just wondering if there's any hope in the future of any kind of problem getting fixed. I don't think I get an answer when I call Evergy. They really don't care about me. So
They don't like to return my phone calls either.
I'm just wondering.
So again, if you've read the article, you said you probably all know the latest information. That is what they provide us with repeatedly. We have reached out to our direct contact, our government relations person at Westar, and they assure us they are working to remediate it, not just state, but nationwide as quickly as possible. It was a flaw, not just with the lights in this community or the state. So I will make contact with them again and see if I can get you another update, but they're working on it.
Well, and even in neighborhoods too. I mean, on our street, we live on a cul-de-sac, and we have one light at the end of our block. That's it. And that thing puts out, I bet, 15% less light than it's now blue. I mean, almost purple. It's like a party every night on our block. You know, the music would fit in well on our block with the party. But
too soon.
So there's
too soon.
Well, I have to. But so, I mean, that's obviously why most of us like a little bit more light in our neighborhood. So I use a little app feature they told you to use that you can go online and report it. And I bet I reported it 6 months ago and still nothing. So I'm just saying nothing is happening. Like literally nothing. That's the only one I reported because I wanted to watch to see if it got fixed. I gave them the poll number and everything.
Well, thank you for doing that.
I'm just wondering if we could find out. I mean, if Suzanne, I know she's out, but if somebody has a little bit more leverage than any of us have sitting up here with Evergy, if we could figure something out.
We will do our best, sir. I will give you an
Thank you. I know they get a lot of our money, so. Yeah.
It's nice that you know your poll number.
Yeah, got to pay attention to the poll numbers.
When you went over the strategic plan progress. I don't think that we give enough credit to our staff, and I mean, those things don't just happen by themselves. So, you know, my hat's off to all city staff. And something that I've noticed too, that we do a lot of our own street repair.
Yes, sir, we do.
Yeah.
It's much more affordable for us to do it.
Yeah, you know, I got over by the police department, I got up to about 60 miles an hour here the other day, and it's just smooth as can be, so, anyway. They really do. Oh, okay, I waved at you when I went by. But anyway, you know, we're just so lucky, and in light of the fact that it's hard to get employees anywhere now, I just want to thank all the city staff for just working hard and
Thank you.
doing their grind. And
We have an amazing team because in
Being good
addition to all
people.
this stuff, they had to
Yeah.
keep the actual daily business of the city going too. So we have an incredible team, and they are here because they have a servant's heart. And I am fortunate I get to be a member of this team. I love this community so very much.
and thank you.
Thank you.
Anything?
No, sir, thank you.
Sir?
No, sir.
Donna? You rock star.
I'll tell you a little something.
Sure.
Because of the cities who did not accept the ARPA funding, it was reallocated. So we're going to get another $8,500 in the next 2 years.
How do you find this money? You're just amazing.
8,500?
8,500.
Hey.
Just a little bit,
Well-
but hey.
That's like 1 month for golf carts, ain't it?
Yeah.
Two.
Two? Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you to our first responders, our PD and fire and EMS. Appreciate you. Thank you for your presence here. And the city staff, thank you so much for all that you do. It's so much appreciated. I would like to give a little bit of a shout out for our city manager and our PD. They had the speeding issue this last week, and I'm thankful for the response of the citizen after all the teamwork that was put into it by our PD and the city manager. You were highly complimented, and the PD did perfect. I mean, just the numbers that were there on the speeding, they weren't like the citizen thought, and the citizen's response was really great. So if that citizen is listening, thank you for your part in this as well. So we appreciate it. Great, great job.
Again, thank you. I am just the messenger, so I appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank all the neighbors that banded together. You know, that's a fantastic example of what we can do here in these hometown communities of ours. When we want to get some action, get some results, we band together and we hook arms and we can make things happen. And now that you've shown some light on the situation, I'm guessing it's going to start moving a little quicker for you. And I want to echo too the amount of projects that we have accomplished here with all of you guys, and this is a whole team, all of us, this whole community, the city staff, the 5 of us. I mean, it takes all of us hooking arms to make these kind of things happen, and we're very, very blessed. And I know we don't want to toot all of us our own horn so loud, but really we are just plugging along, accomplishing some pretty fabulous things. So I think we could be proud of our community. Thank all of you.
Could I make one quick comment?
Sure.
I was getting a little worried about this noise thing. For many years, I built circus calliopes, and some of you may have heard them around town, and I had an opportunity to restore one of them that I built many years ago just last week, but nobody called the cops on me, so.
Definitely a unique circumstance. I don't know how many calliope repairs we've had in town, so very interesting.
A niche market.
Very much.
You know, when we have citizens that are willing to stand up and hold us accountable with the issues happening in our community that we maybe aren't aware of or that aren't getting the attention that is necessary, and then we do our job and listen, I think that goes to the item 3 of our mission for providing trustworthy service. You know, it's not just the commission, but it takes everybody. I do want to do a shout out to Fire EMS for blowing up my social media this last couple of weeks. Boy, has it been great watching the promotions happen and lieutenants making captain and opening up spots for new lieutenants. And it's just really great watching that department grow and build their next level leaders and everything, so. And shout out to your social media.
And Chief is ready for a vacation.
Well,
And he's earned it.
the first one you saw, okay, deputy chief, okay. Well, then the next week, you saw the next layer step up and fill those slots, and it's just really great to see, because that's our role as leaders, is to build our replacements. So,
Absolutely.
awesome.
Thank you.
Well, with that, there is no other business for this evening. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.